Welcome to the Razor Service Series. Today, we will be reviewing our driver kit. First, let's review the contents of the kit. When you purchase the driver kit, you will receive the complete driver assembly. This will not include the mechanical seals, and there will be no oil in the motor housing. A seal kit is required to complete reassembly. Now, before we get started, let's review the tools you will need. A 3/16 inch Allen wrench, a small flathead screwdriver, a rubber mallet, a feeler gauge, red Loctite number 263, denatured alcohol, and a pressure gauge. First, we will remove the cutting mechanism. With the pump on its side, insert the screwdriver into a slot on the suction cover to stop the rotation. Now you can use the Allen wrench to remove the cutter bolt. If you cannot break away the cutter bolt, a torch may be required to crystallize the Loctite. But make sure to use caution when handling the heated components. Once the bolt is removed, the cutter and shims can then be removed. If you have a ZSGV or ZOGV, this step will not apply to you. However, with the ZOGP, you can now remove the suction cover by removing the 3 bolts with your Allen wrench. If the suction cover is stuck on the volute, gently tap it with a mallet. The rotation will allow the clearance, so you're able to wedge it off with the flathead screwdriver. Set aside the O-ring to be used when you reassemble the pump. If you are reusing the existing cutter assembly, set those components aside. For ZOGP models, you can simply slide the first impeller and impeller key off the shaft. Loosen and remove the 3 bolts securing the volute to the motor housing. For the ZSGV and ZOGV models, you will first remove the volute by taking off the same 3 bolts. Now, for all models, you will remove the impeller by sliding it off the shaft. And for the ZSGV and ZOGV models, this is where you will remove the impeller key. If you are reusing the existing hydraulic assembly, set those components aside. To remove the mechanical seal, first remove the spring and rotating member from the shaft. For ZOGP and ZOGV models, wedge the stationary seal out of the seal cavity using a flat-tipped screwdriver. You may need a hammer to crack the seal for easier removal. For SGV models, remove the spring and rotating member of the first seal. Unfasten the 3 bolts to remove the stationary seal and seal plate, and then follow the same steps to remove the second seal. Regardless of what model you have, you should then use compressed air to clear debris and clear the seal cavity with denatured alcohol. Take care to avoid scratches or debris on the shaft to prevent oil leaks. The seal assembly cannot be reused when rebuilding this pump. Begin reassembly by installing the mechanical seals in the driver assembly. Ensure your hands are clean and free from debris. Discard the spring seal cap. Ensure the black dot faces the seal plate and the seal is straight. Lightly oil the stationary seal with denatured alcohol and press it into the seal cavity. Clean the face again with denatured alcohol. Slide the rotating member onto the shaft, ensuring the lapped surface faces inward towards the stationary member, and press onto the lapped face's meat. Place the spring over the shaft and rotating member. For ZSGV double seal models, install the secondary seal plate and fasten it with 3 bolts, tightened to 79 inch per pound. Repeat these instructions to install the second seal. Install the impeller onto the shaft and secure it with the impeller key. For ZOGP models, identify the correct impeller by the additional step around the core, which holds the seal spring. To install the volute, place the O-ring around the seal plate. Ensure the discharge of the volute aligns with the aligned face of the motor cap. Align the volute and secure it with 3 bolts tightened to 79 inch per pound. Ensure the discharge of the volute aligns with the aligned face of the motor cap. For ZOGP models, align the first stage impeller with the key and slide it onto the shaft. Note that this impeller does not have the same step around the bore. Now, before we are ready to install the cutter, we must determine the appropriate number of shims to achieve proper clearance. Stack the shims on the back side of the cutter. Line up the channel of the new cutter with the keyway on the drive shaft and secure it with a cutter bolt. Please note that verifying the cutter clearance and shim stack may take multiple tries. Use a feeler gauge to check the space between the cutter and the cutter plate. A 1/100th inch gauge should not fit. If the space is too large, remove a shim and recheck.
If the cutter rubs, add a shim and recheck again.
After verifying the cutter clearance and shim stack, remove the cutter bolt, cutter, and shims, keeping them together. You now must apply Loctite to 3 points. Spread in the threads of the shaft, on the first 3 threads of the cutter bolt, and on the outer diameter of the cutter. Reinstall the cutter and shims on the shaft and secure the bolt, tightening to 79 inch per pound. To ensure the seal is installed correctly, we need to complete a pressure check. Ensure that there is no oil in the motor housing and the cord set is attached to the pump. Attach the pressure gauge assembly using pipe sealant. Pressurize to 8 to 10 psi. Use a soap solution around sealed areas and inspect for air bubbles. If the pressure holds constant, and no bubbles are observed after 5 minutes, slowly bleed the pressure and remove the gauge assembly. Replace the pipe plug using sealant. If the pressure does not hold, locate and repair the leak. Set the unit upright and refill with new cooling oil. Refer to the Pump I&O manual and service manual for suitable replacement oils and volumes. Apply pipe thread compound to the threads of the pipe plug and assemble it to the motor housing. Thank you for joining us in this edition of the Razor Service Series on our driver kit. Feel free to contact our dedicated support team with questions. Happy grinding!